Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, is here with some breaking news now on Salah's future. And Kaveh, we've been asking, haven't we, where Salah might go. Does Saudi Arabia still look like the likeliest option?
Definitely. Clubs in Saudi Arabia want to sign Mo Salah, but they need a clear indication from him that he is ready to make the move. The optics of this have to be right. I think we've moved on from the stage where Saudi Arabian clubs come along, make big bids for players, offer them crazy money as salary. I think things have got to be done quietly behind closed doors. So if Mo Salah's representatives tell the senior officials in the Saudi Pro League, Mo wants to come to Saudi Arabia, I guarantee you that move will happen. But up until now, they have not received that information from people close to Mo Salah. It's been well documented that in the past 2 years, Saudi Arabian clubs have tried to sign him, but he has always, in the final instant, said, I'm not ready to make the move yet. I still believe that I'm good enough to play at the highest level in European football.
Just how much of a coup would it be for the Saudi Arabian League to get him? And I know you say that it's not quite like how it used to be in terms of finances, but would they pretty much pay him anything he wants?
I don't think they would pay him anything he wants, but he would be seen as a dream signing. Look, throughout Africa, throughout the Arab world, he is seen as somebody who can show what Arab and African footballers can do, what they can achieve at the highest level. And any move to Saudi Arabia would not just be significant for Saudi Arabia, it would also be significant for the Arab world. I've been told by senior officials in Saudi Arabia that Mo Salah coming to play in the SPL would be seen as a homecoming for him. It would be a massive story in the whole of Asia and also in Africa. For what it's worth, I think it's only a matter of time before Mo Salah plays in the SPL. But as I've said, it has to be him making the first move and saying, OK, I'm done with European football. I'm done with the Premier League. I'm done with the Champions League. I want to move with my family to Saudi Arabia. Your second point about them putting big money in front of him, I think we've moved on slightly from there. I think the feeling in Saudi Arabia at the moment is if you're a footballer and you want to come and play in the SPL, you have got to want to come and live and work in Saudi Arabia as well. We're not going to almost sort of bribe you by giving you lots of money. You have got to want to come here as well, because we believe the quality of life in Saudi Arabia is better than the quality of life in Europe. That's what they think.
Which are the likeliest clubs perhaps to sign him?
Well, look, I think all the clubs in the SPL would want him. I think the likeliest clubs were Al Ittihad, based in Jeddah. Karim Benzema plays for them. They're the champions. They've tried to sign Mo Salah in the past. 2 years ago, they made a very late verbal offer of around £150 million for him. But I think that offer was so late that there was very little chance of that deal being done. A couple of months ago, when it looked like he could be leaving Liverpool, Al Hilal were interested in signing him as well. Really interestingly, though, my information is earlier this year, there were talks about Mo Salah moving to rival clubs in the Premier League and also in Europe as well. So perhaps that tells you that he feels himself that he's not quite ready yet to move to Saudi Arabia.
Has it been difficult for you as a group, though, with Mo saying what he had to say on Saturday night, and the impact that has subsequently had, the fact that he's not here tonight?
I think it wasn't too difficult. Obviously, it's his feelings that he obviously aired on after the game. And obviously, we came in on Sunday, and I didn't feel any difference in terms of the team, the players. Obviously, we all know what's going on, but I think it's more the outside world that makes it obviously what it is, bigger than ever. And we just have to deal with the facts, and that's that we had a big game tonight that everyone has to be ready for, and we have another big game on the weekend. And whatever happens, we'll see. Nothing more, nothing less.
As captain, though, have you spoken to Mo? Is there a role? Are you able to elaborate on what's been said?
None of anyone's business. So.
But is there a role that you can play in just maybe reintegrating Mo at some point? I mean, I take it that you obviously hope that he still has a part to play at Liverpool Football Club.
Listen, of course, Mo is. I've been with Mo for such a long time, and I've mentioned it in another interview. He's been a big part of my success that I've had at the club. He's a big part of the club's success. I've been a big part of his success, and we all have been doing it together at Liverpool. So the reality is as well that he's going away on the weekend, and then hopefully he has an amazing African Cup of Nations, and in the meantime I have no idea what will happen.
Well, after that, hopefully, well, I would imagine your hope is that he comes back firing and then plays a part in turning the season into a successful one.
100%, but listen, I'm not the decision maker here. It's a decision between the club and Mo. But whatever happens, obviously, like, listen, we are friends. We've been through highs and lows, and let's see what it brings.
With 2 wins, probably with 16 points, you can be in the top 8. Not sure about that, but now the focus has to be the game at home, and then the next one for sure. If we want to try to finish top 8, we need to win both. Otherwise, we try to play the playoff and then go to the next round.
Right, Dara, so after the draw with Arsenal, where they had 10 men, everyone was very positive about Chelsea, but since then they lost to Leeds, they've drawn with Bournemouth, who had lost a bit of form actually, and then defeat to Atalanta. Now, you could say, well, that's football, that happens.
Sure.
But there are people pointing to Maresca saying he's making too many changes. What do you think?
Trying to make him the new Ranieri, the Tinkerman.
Yeah.
I think when you're playing with the intensity they play with, and they played, dominate the football, high press, all of that, and they've had a few injuries. But when you look at the way they play, I think he has to make changes. I think it's impossible for a manager and the style of play he has to play the same 9-10 players in a Champions League game and a league game. So modern day football, the way it is, I think saying people are tinkering or changing too many players, I think it's wrong. I think it needs to be done. I've seen it myself with our players. Since our new managers come in, the intensity's risen, the pressing has risen, and our players struggled. They won their first few games, then they lost a couple of games because I could see they were hitting a wall and they were struggling. And we had injuries and we couldn't make 5-6 changes. But you thought, well, if we do and give them that refresher, they'll be fine to go again. That's down to the manager. So I'm sympathetic to him. I think they'll be fine. I think there's no drama. I know everyone likes to start creating drama. Well, they have more than 4 games and they've drawn 2 and lost 2, whatever else. I think it will be up to, like, this time 2 weeks ago, I think they beat Barcelona quite comfortably, and then 2 weeks later, suddenly the sky's falling. I'm absolutely behind that manager that they do need to make those changes to play the way he wants to play.
Let's bring in a Chelsea fan. Charlie Patrick is waiting to speak to us. Charlie, it was 5 changes again. What do you make of this tinkering?
I don't really mind it too much. I think obviously modern football is the way it's going. They're so careful about managing workloads with players nowadays. And if the changes weren't made and key players got injured, they'd be moaning about, oh, why weren't the changes made? For me, the problem is he's trying to be too clever. It's the reinventing of putting players in positions they're not really used to, trying to create new roles for players. Like last night, for example, we're finishing up with Malo Gusto and Marc Cucurella basically playing as a 2 number 10s when you've got an Esteval on the bench, you've got an Andre Santos on the bench as well. You finish a game with 6 or 7 defensive-minded players on the pitch. That's when the issues come. Is that he's trying to be too clever, reinventing the wheel. If it was just like-for-like changes in positions, I haven't got a problem with it. It's when he tries to become too clever and is making players play in roles that don't suit them, and they're not able to perform to the level that you expect from them. So I'm not against the rotation, but he's got to just simplify things and stop trying to be so clever. I think we're seeing it with a lot of managers at the moment in modern football. They're trying to be too clever, and by doing that, they actually end up looking more stupid than they want to do.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the bench actually. Yes, he did bring on Garnacho, but Esteval, unused substitute, as you've mentioned. Mark Guiu was on the bench. Tyreek George, an attacking player. Buonanotte as well. So I suppose he did have those options there, and he only used 3 out of the possible 5 substitutions that he could have used. But the Esteval one, you particularly brought up Esteval. Is that the one that annoyed you the most?
Yeah, I think so, because when you look at what Esteval's done this season for Chelsea, he's our top scorer in the Champions League, scored 3 goals for us. You need a spark, you need some creation. The attackers have been really struggling. You've got a lot of defensive players on the pitch, as I said, and instead of that, he moves Jamie Gittins to the right-hand side. Gittins has been struggling in the game, not a good game. You've got Esteval there ready, waiting to come on, someone a bit unpredictable, someone totally different, and he just totally overlooks him, and you've got fullbacks playing in attacking positions when you've got actual quality on the bench to use. I'm not saying we would have won the game with Esteval coming onto the pitch, but it would have given us a better chance. It would have given us, a bit of a lift. Gives the fans a lift, it gives the players a lift. You don't know what he's going to do on the ball. So, yeah, the decisions the manager's making at the moment they're a bit baffling, and he needs to take responsibility for that. Ultimately, last night was down to him. He got it completely wrong.
Dara, with a young player, do you understand why? Everyone's talking about Esteval. Can you understand why he would be protected by his manager?
Of course, absolutely, yeah, because I've seen enough of our own young players that come through and whatever else, that they have good periods and they have bad periods. And when they're having a bad period, or the legs are heavier, the pressure's on, sometimes you have to take them out of the firing line. I'm not saying he's having a bad period, by the way. But I agree with Charlie. The biggest frustration and anger from fans, forget results, is the square pegs round holes. We talk about that all the time. Sometimes managers, it's almost like they have a God complex, where they think I'm going to put a goalkeeper up front, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, I've had it over 20 years now, and my gaffer will ring me and he goes, yeah, and by the way, I'm going to be doing this on Saturday. And in my mind, if you could see me on the other end of the phone screaming, no, knowing that this is going to backfire, because now fast forward 48 hours, my manager going afterwards on the phone, I've made a big mistake there. I can't believe I did that. Well, I can, because I was about to tell you, but I can't. That's not my place to tell you before you did it. So I totally get that frustration. I'm a Maresca fan. I think what he's doing at Chelsea is good. I think you had a great season last year. I think you'll have a really good season this year. But if a manager's doing things like that, he does need to check himself, and he does need to get over himself, because there's absolutely no reason to be doing stuff like that when you've got a squad that size, you've got players of that ability sat on the bench. 100%.
In general, Charlie, are the fans happy with Maresca? I know it has been mixed this season, but last time we spoke, it was very positive.
Yeah, look, obviously it was positive last time. We had a couple of good results, and things in football change so quickly. I think, look, broadly speaking, from where I'm coming from, my opinion, I'm still backing the manager. But right now, when you're on a run, look, a 4-game winless run, right, is not terrible in terms of, it's not something that can't be rectified. I think the biggest problem for me is the manner of the performances that we've had since the Arsenal game. We're going into games totally unprepared, it's like we didn't know what to expect from these games. Tactically we're all over the place. Like, Chelsea are so easy to play against, and ultimately that's on the manager. So we've got a massive game against Everton. We've got Everton, Newcastle and Aston Villa in the next 3 Premier League games. That's 3 massive games, tough games coming up, and he's got to turn things around. I still back him, but I can understand why people might be starting to lose faith in him. I can understand why the pressure's starting to build, because the manner of the performances and how unprepared Chelsea are looking in these games, particularly away games, we're just not at the races at all. And that ultimately, that comes from the manager. He talks about losing control last night. That's your responsibility to get control back in the game. And once again, against a team that plays a back 3 or a back 5, we've got no idea how to break those sort of teams down. Any game where Chelsea are favourites to win, we really struggle, and you don't know who's going to turn up. So the manager's got to find a solution to this. I back the manager, but I can only back him for so long. If I'm not seeing signs of improvement, if I'm not seeing signs of him turning things around, then it's very difficult to back someone when you're not seeing any signs of improvement. I hope he can turn it around. I want him to turn it around. I think for the sake of the club, he needs to turn it around. But there's some big question marks again, and it's what funny. So we were sitting here a couple of weeks ago. We played brilliant against Barcelona, brilliant against Arsenal, and now
everything's turning around.
Everything's turning around again. But I think if you spoke to most Chelsea fans, they kind of sort of knew something like this would come, because it's kind of what we've been like for the last couple of seasons, and it just feels like a season that promised so much is in danger of unravelling so quickly.
Let me just say this before Charlie goes. Let me say this to all football fans. We're in December. We're not in April. We're not in May. We're in December. And whilst I get people get exasperated and get anxiety and lose their patience with bad runs, and we're talking about needing to turn it around after not winning for 4 games, not 10 or 15, sometimes calmness is needed as well. And calmness can be your greatest strength. Yeah. I've got no doubt Maresca, Chelsea will have another fantastic season like they did 6 months ago.
Charlie, keep calm. Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Mikel Arteta has made it clear that Arsenal will need to unleash their complete player against Bayern Munich. The Gunners host the German champions at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday, and one man in particular could be decisive. Ebereki Eze, described as a very complete player by teammate Mikel Merino, is emerging as one of Arsenal's most dangerous weapons ahead of their Champions League clash with Bayern. The 27-year-old announced himself in North London with a stunning hat-trick in his first derby since arriving in a £67.5 million move from Crystal Palace. His 3 brilliant goals dismantled Tottenham, and truthfully, he could have scored even more. Merino believes every one of Arsenal's 8 summer signings has lifted the squad's level, helping the team build a 6-point lead at the top of the Premier League. But Wednesday's matchup is different. Bayern Munich, the reigning Bundesliga champions, represent the toughest test yet for Arteta's side. Speaking after the win over Spurs, Merino praised Eze's qualities and hinted at the impact he could have in such a high-stakes European battle. We've brought in a lot of players who can make a difference. But you can see that other teams have spent big as well, the Spain international said. Individual brilliance can win matches, sure, but in the end, it's the team that matters. If you have great players who don't connect, that's a problem. The good thing about this group is that everyone thinks about the team first. When asked about Eze specifically, Merino didn't hesitate. I think he's incredibly complete. He can dribble, he can pass, and his technical quality is outstanding. In Spain, we always talk about players who can connect with others. He has that naturally. He grew up with that instinct to link play, move the ball, and build relationships on the pitch. He also has the mindset to get involved, demand the ball, and influence the game. At the same time, he's strong, he can take players on, and he can finish. He's a truly complete signing. Merino also touched on how the modern game often reduces players to simple numbers. These days everyone judges players by goals and assists, That's just how it is. But as footballers, we see the deeper qualities he brings. The technique, the movement, the intelligence. Even in training, you can tell immediately how special he is. Yes, he's scoring goals, but he's much more than that. He's an exceptional player, and we're incredibly lucky to have him. He can play in several positions and adapt to different systems. He's been a huge addition for Arsenal. Beyond the technical qualities, Mourinho believes Iza's attitude, and the healthy competition within the squad, will be crucial in Arsenal's title push. You can hear the calm in Eberechi's voice and see it in the way he carries himself. He's confident, grounded, and every morning we sit together in the sauna at the training ground and talk about everything, he added with a smile. He's a great guy, already fully integrated, and we need players like him. Competition is fierce. There's so much quality in this squad. That's exactly what the manager wanted, as many top players as possible, all ready to play. It makes his decisions tough, choosing who starts and who doesn't, but it also pushes every one of us to give our best in every session. And that's why we're improving as a team. As Arsenal prepare for Bayern's arrival, Arteta is facing one of the most delicate balancing acts of the season. The squad is healthy, competition is fierce, and expectations have never been higher. But behind the scenes, there is a growing sense that Iza's versatility and calm presence may be essential against a Bayern side known for controlling the tempo in big European nights. Arteta himself has hinted at Iza's importance without naming him directly. After the Tottenham victory, the manager spoke about the need for players who can break pressure, dictate rhythm, and stay composed when the game becomes chaotic. Those inside the club believe those comments were aimed at Iza as much as anyone. The coaching staff has been particularly impressed by how quickly he has adapted to Arsenal's positional play structure, a system that demands far more tactical discipline than what he was used to at Crystal Palace. Analysts at the club point to his growing influence not only in the final third, but also in build-up phases, where his ability to glide past pressure could help Arsenal bypass Bayern's aggressive midfield line. There is also an awareness that Bayern's fullbacks tend to push high, leaving spaces between the lines. Iza's skill set, sharp turns, deceptive acceleration, and precise final balls, could be exactly what Arteta needs to exploit those gaps. Outside the club, pundits have already started circling Wednesday's match as a defining moment for the £67.5 million signing. Some believe that if Iza can impose himself on a Champions League quarter-final against Bayern Munich, it will confirm his arrival among Europe's elite creative players. Former players have echoed that sentiment. Several ex-Arsenal figures, speaking on television over the weekend, highlighted the need for someone who can change the temperature of the match with a moment of calm or an unexpected burst of creativity. Iza, they argued, is one of the few in the squad capable of both. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich come into the match with their own confidence. Their midfield trio has been one of the most dominant in Europe this season, and they have shown a repeated ability to suffocate opponents early. That dynamic is precisely why Arteta may lean on Iza's composure. When the game tightens, Arsenal will need a player capable of slowing it down, protecting the ball, and finding solutions in tight spaces. Within Arsenal's dressing room, Mourinho's praise reflects a broader consensus. Senior players have reportedly been struck by Iza's humility and work ethic, qualities that have helped him integrate seamlessly into a squad that already had strong internal chemistry. Staff members describe him as someone who never forces the game, and lets the match come to him, characteristics that could prove invaluable in a high-tension Champions League tie. As kickoff approaches, the narrative surrounding the match has shifted. What began as a test of Arsenal's resilience has quietly become a spotlight on whether Iza can elevate them in Europe the same way he has in the Premier League. For Arteta, the equation is simple. If Arsenal are to overcome Bayern, they will need more than intensity. They will need control. They will need creativity. And increasingly, they will need the completeness Iza brings to every phase of the pitch. Whether he starts in a wide role as a floating midfielder, or even as an interior playmaker, the expectation is the same. Iza will have to find the spaces others cannot, and influence the game in ways that statistics alone will not capture. The stakes are high, the opponent is formidable, and the spotlight is intense. But within the walls of London Coney, the belief is growing that this is exactly the kind of stage Eberechi Iza was signed for. Martin Odegaard is nearing a return to action after suffering a medial collateral ligament injury in Arsenal's 2-0 win over West Ham earlier in October. Yet, 3.5 years after Mikel Arteta named him captain, the Norwegian finds himself in an unfamiliar position. His place in the starting lineup is no longer guaranteed. For the first time since joining the club permanently from Real Madrid in August 2021, there is real debate over whether he remains an automatic choice for Arteta's 11. Odegaard, now 26, has been central to Arsenal's resurgence under Arteta, the conductor who shaped the team's rhythm through some of their most fluid football. But this season, the Gunners have been forced to navigate long stretches without their captain, first due to a shoulder issue that kept him out of 4 matches in September, and then because of a knee collision with West Ham's Crescencio Somerville that sidelined him again. And during his absence, something significant happened. Ebereki Eze stepped into the spotlight. Eze's sensational hat-trick in the North London Derby has complicated the picture. Now thriving in a central role, the England international has given Arsenal a different kind of presence around the edge of the box. A blend of unpredictability, directness, and two-footed confidence that opponents struggle to contain. He may not control games with the same metronomic precision as Odegaard, but he offers a spark, a willingness to take risks at moments when Arsenal need a jolt of creativity. After such a standout performance against Tottenham, it feels almost impossible to imagine Arteta leaving Eze out. The manager has always had a soft spot for players riding a wave of confidence, and Eze is currently surfing at full height. There was a similar situation back in September, when Mikel Merino was handed a start against Manchester City after scoring 4 times in 2 games for Spain, including a hat-trick against Turkey. Arteta doesn't hesitate to reward form. Eze has carried that form onto the international stage as well, recently scoring a stunning goal for England in a 2-0 win over Serbia in the World Cup qualifiers at Wembley. Though he can play on the left, it has always been clear that Arteta brought him to the Emirates to operate in midfield. And with Declan Rice and Martin Zubamendi near untouchable in the double pivot, the odds of Eze and Odegaard consistently starting together seem slim. That leaves Odegaard in an unfamiliar position. He needs minutes to rebuild sharpness, yet Arsenal's medical team won't rush him. The plan is likely to ease him back through short substitute appearances before restoring him to larger roles. But even once fully fit, Odegaard faces genuine competition, because Eze has shifted the landscape. His arrival has raised the team's ceiling, and his performances have earned him the right to keep his place. Before the dismantling of Tottenham, Eze had scored only twice for Arsenal, one against Port Vale in the Carabao Cup and another versus his former club Crystal Palace, a clever finish that sealed victory. Now with 5 goals across all competitions, he sits just 1 behind Odegaard's total from last season, when the captain made 45 appearances. Odegaard's 2023-24 numbers were outstanding: 11 goals, 12 assists, influence written across every competition. That is the standard he must match again if he wants to reclaim his spot, because Eze is hungry, confident, and eager to impress ahead of next summer's World Cup. Arteta will insist that Arsenal need both players at their best if they are to meet their ambitions in the months ahead. And with Kai Havertz also working his way back to full fitness, potentially slotting into midfield behind marquee striker Victor Gyökeres, the battle for places has never been fiercer at the Emirates. For Odegaard, the message is clear: he must rise to the challenge. His leadership and quality remain unquestioned, but he can no longer rely on reputation alone. If he embraces the competition and fights his way back into the side, his return could push Arsenal to even greater heights. And if the team has already reached this level without several key figures, the potential for what comes next may be even greater. Inside the club, staff members are quietly acknowledging that Arsenal are entering a new phase, one where no player, not even the captain, is immune to tactical evolution. Arteta has spent the past 2 seasons building a squad capable of sustaining pressure across multiple competitions, and the emergence of Eze is a sign that the manager's long-term planning is beginning to bear fruit. Depth is no longer a luxury, it is a necessity. But with depth comes difficult decisions. Arteta has always valued balance in midfield, and the contrasting profiles of Odegaard and Eze force him to reconsider what type of midfield best suits the team's ambitions in Europe and the Premier League. The technical control and spatial awareness that Odegaard brings have defined Arsenal's identity under Arteta. Conversely, Eze's dynamism, physical presence, and unpredictable touches give Arsenal a new dimension, especially against teams that sit deep or defend aggressively in central areas. This internal shift has also caught the attention of analysts and former players. Several pundits have begun to question whether the captaincy should guarantee a place in the lineup, especially at a club with ambitions of challenging for the Champions League. Others argue that Odegaard's leadership is too valuable to sideline, pointing to the standards he sets in training and his influence over younger players. Those debates are already spilling into the media, and they will only intensify as the season progresses. There is also the tactical question of whether Arteta might eventually experiment with a system that accommodates both Ease and Odegaard, something he briefly attempted earlier in the season during the win over West Ham. But with Rice and Zubimendi forming an almost impenetrable midfield pairing, any reshuffle risks destabilizing the defensive structure that has made Arsenal one of the most resilient teams in the league. The manager has hinted that he is open to adjustments, but only if they enhance the team's overall cohesion. For Odegaard himself, the challenge is as much psychological as it is physical. He has worked hard to cultivate an image of calm authority, a leader who raises the level of those around him through clarity and consistency. Now he must show that he can adapt, compete, and respond to adversity. His teammates still speak of him with admiration, describing him as one of the most studious and detail-oriented players at London Coney. They believe that once he regains full rhythm, he will naturally reassert his influence. Yet even they acknowledge that the landscape has shifted. One senior player privately remarked that, "The team is different now, Ease has changed what we can do in the final third." That sentiment reflects not a lack of faith in Odegaard, but an understanding that Arsenal have evolved while he has been sidelined. For Arteta, the ideal scenario is straightforward, a fully fit Odegaard competing with a fully confident Ease, creating a level of internal competition that lifts the entire squad. The manager often speaks about the need for healthy tension among his players, pressure that keeps standards high without fracturing unity. The arrival of Victor Gyökeres, combined with the recovery of Havertz, only amplifies that dynamic. Arsenal's season will almost certainly hinge on these midfield decisions. With Champions League knockout matches approaching and the Premier League title race tightening, Arteta must decide not only who starts, but what kind of identity he wants his team to carry into the defining months of the campaign. The next few weeks will reveal whether Odegaard's return sparks a resurgence or a battle for relevance. If he manages to reclaim his place, it could serve as a reminder of why Arteta trusted him with the armband in the first place. If he struggles, it will underline how rapidly Arsenal are progressing, and how little room there is for sentiment at the highest level. Either way, the captain's response will shape not just his future, but the trajectory of a team that believes it is on the brink of something significant.